I want to tell you about a manager I worked with. She runs a team, and for 5 years, 5 whole years, she had a difficult person on that team. She tried to work it out on her own. She's smart, she's capable, but nothing shifted. And it wasn't just her, the whole workplace was affected. There was a heaviness, a kind of an undercurrent of resentment, and everybody could feel it, even if nobody knew how to name it. And she came on our program carrying all of that. And what happened over the next few weeks really surprised her because she started to see something she hadn't been able to see before. She could see how her own behaviour, the way she was showing up, was actually allowing the difficult person to keep being difficult. Not intentionally, not obviously, but once she could see it, she couldn't unsee it. She had been focusing on the other person, what they were doing wrong, and why they were the problem. And that made sense because, well, they were, to be frank, quite difficult. But the shift came when she stopped focusing out there and she started naming what was in here. Her own feelings, the resentment that she'd been carrying, the tension that she was bringing into every interaction without even realizing it. She told me that she couldn't have done that on her own. She'd been trying for 5 years. And whenever she talked with her partner or friends, they would always confirm that the other person was the problem. They'd give advice, why don't you try this and why don't you do that? And none of those things worked. But when she shared with me, she got quite a different response, which helped her see that there was something that she could do differently without the other person needing to cooperate. And that is, she could look at her part in the system, not as blame, but as information. What she realized was that she was assuming responsibility for a whole of the emotional load that the difficult person was carrying, as well as for how the rest of the team were feeling. And when she did realize that, something shifted. Well, she did have a conversation with a difficult person, but it was different this time, a different kind of conversation. She could hear what they were saying without needing to fix it, without rescuing them, without taking responsibility for how they were feeling. She stayed present and she didn't take it on. And when she reported back to me a couple of weeks later, she said something that I won't forget. Her difficult person had changed. She'd lightened up. She'd engaged with the others. She was telling funny stories at morning tea like she used to. She had the whole office in fits of laughter. And my client said it was so good to hear. She said that would never have happened even 3 or 4 weeks previously. Nothing dramatic happened, no ultimatums, no HR process, no team restructure. The only thing that changed was that she, as the leader, was carrying inside herself, and the whole room felt it. And that's what I want to talk about today, because what happened to her is available to you. But first, if you're good at your job and people still drain you, this is for you. Now let me name this clearly, because most leaders blame themselves for it, or blame the other person, and both of those things keep you stuck. This isn't incompetence, it isn't weakness, and it's not simply a people problem. It's an emotional load, the repeated micro-tensions that never quite get resolved, the unfinished conversations you keep replaying, thinking about the people long after work is done. The work ends, the people issues don't. And the more responsibility that you take, the heavier it gets, not lighter. But here's what most leadership training misses. It's not just that people drain you, it's that nobody ever shows you what you're bringing to the dynamic, the mood that gets generated when you take on too much, the assumptions running in the background and how they affect you, the way you're showing up before you've said a single word. And that manager I told you about, well, she wasn't a bad leader. She was a good leader carrying something that she couldn't see. And once she could see it, everything changed. And that's what we're talking about. Now, I know this from the inside, not just from working with managers, but from my own experience. I've always worked in the people business. When I was a young priest, I was actually very competent at ministering to others in a pastoral setting. One-on-one in the parish, I did well. But working with the other priests, that was a different story. We were a team and none of us had particularly high personal EQ, which honestly is pretty typical of most workplaces, not just priests in a parish. I remember one team meeting clearly. The tension in the room was really high. No one could make a decision. No one named what was going on. We just bumbled along. And I realised something that really shook me. I didn't have the skills to manage these people. Nothing dramatically wrong, no blow-ups, no obvious crisis, which made it even worse, really, because on the outside people saw me as high-functioning, competent, grounded, good with people. Inside the team, I was awful, and I was embarrassed. I didn't even know how to talk about it. At first, I didn't realise what it was costing me, but over time I felt lifeless. What used to inspire me slowly wore me down. I became irritable. There was a constant underlying tension in me, and I kept thinking, it shouldn't be like this. I should be able to handle this. And that belief that I should already be able to cope, that kept me stuck. The turning point came when I joined a group of people who were all trying to relate better to those that they worked with. And one of the trainers saw straight through me. He said, in effect, that I was surrounding myself with a big bubble, using it as protection. Now that moment changed everything. I realised I could change, especially with coaching, especially when I stopped pretending I had to be perfect or authoritative all the time. There was an enormous relief in that. Like many managers, I had a public persona. People expected me to be calm, competent, together. And that expectation had been stopping me from enjoying my work. I didn't have to be perfect. I could be vulnerable. And that didn't ruin who I was or what I could offer others. And here's the myth that I see everywhere now. It's the statement, at some point, I should be able to handle this. The truth is simpler and kinder. Nobody teaches you how to process other people's emotions without getting tangled up in them, or how to stop carrying it all home with you, without absorbing them, without getting the energy sucked out of you. And nobody shows you what you're bringing to the dynamic, until now. And this bottleneck shows up more in capable leaders, not less. Experience increases emotional exposure. Authority doesn't reduce the load, it often increases it. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. The good news is, this isn't about becoming softer. It's about learning how to engage without carrying everything with you, and learning to see what you're bringing before the conversation even starts. I see the same look in leaders every week now. Now, if this hits a nerve with you, you're not broken. You're just dealing with something that nobody ever trained you for. Now stay with me with this. This is exactly what we'll be unpacking over the next few weeks. I'm John Fazandia. Thanks for watching.